where's the NAF cave drawings? I've seen NAF graffiti, but where's the NAF cave drawing? Who did that?
Whatever your learning difficulties or weaknesses are, for the first time ever, you will be able to go on everything.
Communication has grown and evolved depending on your environment.
So it's interesting that you mention the origins of words, because one of the things I would say about the English language in particular is that it's developing to a point that, there's some positives and there are what I consider to be a lot of negatives. I think in essence, some of the kind of, whether it's Gen Z or millennial kind of terms, like you're sick and things of that nature, are kind of, they bring a whole new meaning. But there are certain words that have been misinterpreted and words that are now used in a completely different context than they were originally intended. So the classic one, and I am going to ask you about this, you in particular. So, for example, what do you think naked means?
Naked to me would be like no clothes.
Okay. What about nude?
Either the same thing or I would say it was a colour.
In actual fact, naked means anything that is bare, not the human body. When somebody has no clothes on, they are nude. So naked has been translated into now nude, when in actual fact it's not the right answer as such. How many times have you heard a commentator saying, listen, we were beat? No, you weren't beat. You were beaten. Okay? So things are taken out of context. And they're kind of, not they're twisted, but they mean a completely different thing. And the one thing I would say that MiiM does is because it's not using particular words, it's giving you the meaning of what you're trying to say. It eliminates the elitism. And it takes away the want to be almost anxious that you're using the right contextual word because of the way things have mutated. That's what makes it unique. Now, in terms of symbology, yes, things have moved on, and Tim is going to talk about where the whole not the principle of or the inspiration for MiiM came from, but in latter days, nobody's really been able to achieve what Tim has done, and that's what makes the language unique as well. And by the way, just as a little bit of a postscript, when did growing a business become growing a business? Because I always thought you grew plants. I thought a business developed, but anyway, I digress. Tim.
Excellent. Sorry, what was I supposed to be talking about?
So we were talking about...
Again, my condition.
No, so we know, obviously, you've told us about how you came up with the concept of when you saw the, the lozenges, I forgot what they're called, when you saw the apps jiggle.
Yeah.
But you were not basing it, but you got the inspiration from the language from various places.
Oh, enormous. There's films. There's. I remember that brilliant scene in, is it Pulp Fiction, where they're in the cafe and they're trying to do that robbery, and the bloke opens.
That's right.
John Travolta opens it up. You never see what's in it, but you think, yeah, that's too hot to handle. You're just there for a couple of pennies, mate. You're not there. This is real stuff. So, yeah, you're going out without that. And that's in one of the patrons.
But something gave you big inspiration regarding the way you designed it as well. Something inspired you.
Well, so many things. Give us a hint.
It was to do with that large...
My head's full of snow geese.
That large event that happens every 4 years.
Wow.
Where people run around a track.
Wow, okay. Oh, yes, absolutely. Yeah. Again, going back to college. Yeah, absolutely. Superb piece of design. Munich Games. No idea. It would have been 70-something.
1980...
No, it would have been 70s.
1976, was it?
Yeah, I was in college in the 70s.
Before Taylor was born, that.
Yeah, I'm getting on now.
He's looking at Google now. Go on, son.
But it was absolutely superb, and it was the simplicity of it. And I always, because I remember walking into our college, and I hadn't got a clue what I was doing. I hadn't got a clue. So every day was obviously a learning day, but I was really clueless.
Yeah, 1972.
Oh, was it? Yeah, 72. Okay. So, and this piece of design was just brilliant. It was just absolutely brilliant. And utilising a grid and all the rest of it in a framework. And I thought, whoa, let's go back. Because I've got that sort of brain that can pick things at random that I've seen or learned from God knows when. And I'm known for putting odd things together. Very strange. I remember coming up with a title of an album, and somebody said would never put those words together, and that's what I do. And I called it Puppet Omelette. But again, it's pictures. It's like, how do you make that work? But yeah, there's so many influences. The actual, say, a year, and based in mind, you're talking like the pictrons are going to work, about a quarter of an inch. If that, or I shouldn't do quarter of an inch. What is it in centimeters or millimeters?
Yeah, it's 2.5 centimeters per inch, isn't it?
So yeah, very small, very small. So to say a year, and it's like, how would you do a year? Well, to me, it's quite. This is what I did with the language. I took it. It's like reducing a sauce. You're reducing it and reducing it and reducing it, and eventually you get to the base level of what the word actually means. So I use that.
So compared to the other language, so for example, hieroglyphics and tree in Chinese, so basically
hieroglyphics don't. It's not really a picture language because a raven doesn't mean a raven, and it doesn't. Not that we've got a raven, but whatever.
So you're saying that you wanted to create a language. The symbology was, although similar to other ones that you'd done,
yes,
you wanted to make the whole process simpler with the type of image that you were creating, which is why you chose the graphics from the Olympic Games.
Yeah,
it was very clean.
Superb. Yes, absolutely.
So during the process of designing, when you did design,
yes,
it's wrong to say that you took inspiration from, but how did you compare it to previous attempts, or not so much attempts, but previous languages and previous ways of communicating?
Well, again, I think there has to be a point where you have to throw certain things out of the window, and you do, and I did, and once I'd learned so much, because I only need to know principles. I just need to know principles, and once I know principles of things, then you can operate within them or around them or underneath them or whatever. And that's basically what I did with the language. And I thought, no, approach it from a totally new angle. Again, something strange, but mind you, I have a link with him anyway. I never spoke till I was 5, apparently, like Einstein. And Einstein was asked once, what's the speed of sound? And he turned to him and said, I haven't got a clue. I'll look it up in a book. Because he didn't retain that information. And I can relate to that, because I don't. I relate to things when I'm working with them. Some things have hooks and they stick, and other things don't. So I throw them out. So again, the way I approached a year, as I come back eventually, it's an orbit. It's an orbit. It's an orbit orbiting the sun, and that's a year. No matter where you are, what planet you're on, a year's a year. So again, that's the way I approach the language. Body shapes, for instance, they're all hearts. So it's a huge heart, there's a medium heart, there's a really skinny little heart. But they're all hearts. Why? Because everyone should be loved. Everyone should be loved. So there's things like that. What else? Days of the week. Days of the week are really interesting. I started it, and again, it's quite complex, but it was based on cowboy films. I'll see you in so many moons, and I thought, oh wow, that sounds great, And those were the days when you wouldn't just pitch up camp and then disappear in 10 minutes. Oh, he's not there. Let's go. You'd pitch up for a week or more, because anything could happen. The bridge could have fallen down. Well, there's no bridge or whatever. So you're going to get across rivers and so. So it's a strange one. Anyway, so the days of the week based on cowboy films, and at the same time, there's a moon, and then a sun, and then a moon, and then a sun. And the reason why it started with a moon because it goes back to, I'm not religious, but it goes back to the Bible, and then there was light. Okay, but there were things already in existence, matter, and a sun needs to build. Sun needs to build to go to create fusion. So there's still objects about that it's yet to eat to become fusion. I'm knocking the microphone. So there's matter involved, and also it is. You'll find when you actually look, I've built, even though they look incredibly simple, there's an awful lot of depth and an awful lot of them. That was very hard. The amount of work that I've actually done ended up in the bin. I did months and months and months, well, probably years actually, of work that found its way in the bin, because you could either already say it, even though I thought, oh, that's great, really, really, no. And you've got to be really ruthless, otherwise you end up with so much fog, and you can't have fog in a language, obviously. Even though we're sold to business with fog or mist.
Well, the interesting thing about what Tim says is, especially when you start looking at things like days, he's right about the sunset and sunrise. Okay, the moon's gone. The moon, so the day, the sun has set, the moon appears, and then the sun rises the following day. But because of that, there's 8 images on a week. So Monday is the second image. You're thinking, oh.
Yes, it is.
Well, no, was that Tuesday then? Well, no, it's not, because the sun has set on Sunday, or the moon is, and the sun has risen on Monday. So it does make sense when you think about it. And again, it's very, very obvious, as opposed to, let's talk about the complexity of words. What some, here's my constant one. It's a Gen Z and a millennial thing again. When I say to my 2 girls, I'll see you a week on Sunday, they say, so is that next Sunday then? No, it's a week on Sunday. Yeah. The day after tomorrow is in 2 days' time. Okay, people don't grasp the particular nuances of it's a week on Sunday, or the weekend after next, or I'll see you in a fortnight. Yeah, so all of that disappears with MiiM because you're enabled to actually describe in terms as finite, for example, as a day, a date, a month, and a time. And a minute, if you wanted to.
Yes, absolutely.
It's all there if you want to be that specific.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's what makes it unique. You can say all of these things without using words.
Yes.
We talk about, obviously, the evolution of language. And, we talk about hieroglyphics, cave drawings. And obviously, a whole lot of time has passed to where we are now. And, you've got different kind of like accents. You've got numerous meanings for different words. Depending on how old you are. With MiiM now, do you think that it's kind of took language back to its simplest form?
Yes.
And do you find that language is too complicated, and we've just, as humans, made things too complicated for ourselves?
Funnily enough, I could be wrong. Hopefully somebody will explain and tell me so. But again, as Nat hinted about elitism in language, which there is, I think certain clever words were brought in mainly for law.
Yeah.
Rather than communication. So, and the way I see certain words, they're like the back door, the get out of jail free card. They're words that
there are some beautiful words out there, and I love one of the things that I really like, and this is a classic. If you're getting into highbrow, when somebody, and this has been used on countless occasions in comedy, you're very pedantic, and somebody says, "Well, actually, I'm not pedantic, but I am a pedant." that sums it up perfectly, because it can be as elitist as you want it, and there are some very, very funny variants of words. But in answer to your question, Taylor, if you look at languages, I'm lucky. Obviously, I'm from Italian parentage, so I speak Italian, but I also understand all the Romantic languages. So for something as simple, for example, as the word butter. So in English, Anglo-Saxon call it's butter, and in France it's beurre, and in Italian it's burro. Yeah, which actually in Spanish is donkey, but in Spanish it's mantequilla. Why is that then? Because all the Romantic languages, so many crossovers in all the Romantic languages, French, Italian, and Spanish, but you go from butter, burro, beurre, and then mantequilla. So very often it throws you off scent. So MiiM is able to unify. It is truly a universal language. It can be used worldwide without any difference anywhere.
And it can build, and it builds very much in the same way as this mic ain't going, is it? I can see. Sorry. Hello, hello, hello. Hello. Hello, hello, hello. Do I have to get closer, do I?
No, it's fine.
Is it fine now? Yeah, it's fine. I don't know what I was on about then. Was I going to... I was going to say something then.
So I was saying about the different things in different languages, different words, butter, beurre.
Yeah, well, apparently milk is near enough the same word globally because obviously
Well, here they call it latte, don't they? Lactate.
Yeah.
In Italian it's latte. In Spanish it's leche.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know what it is in French actually. But as you say, very similar. They're all the Romantic languages are very, very similar.
Yeah, and MiiM does, which I again found out in my research. It's very much like classic Greek, which can build. You'll be able to build. It's like MiiM is the foundations, but what on earth it's going to turn into? It's so exciting because somebody's going to turn it into something else. I've got no idea. I'm the inventor, but I've got no idea. I'm going to be absolutely like, whoa, what earth's going on? Which is great because nobody can actually just say, well, I'm just going to adopt English and it's going to be mine. But you can with MiiM. You can use it in a completely different, unique way between you and your friends, and you can. And it's totally unique. Why? Because you and your friends have decided to say, this is how we talk. And as long as all the content and the emotions are there, it's going to be, it's going to be fabulous as far as I'm concerned, and that's what I put into it.
Yeah, the closest analogy I can give is the guy who invented Bluetooth.
Oh yeah,
really was trying to place it with big manufacturers who made domestic appliances, so they could actually, have an online appliance to enable them to, replenish that, whether it's a fridge, a freezer, or whatever. But then smartphones came along, and that's where Bluetooth found its home. So. We think that with the MiiM language, as much as we try and do with it, this is why we're really not trying to push it or funnel it into any specific area. We do believe that it will find its home somewhere.
One of the lines I do use as well is, which is quite interesting. I led a dog on a lead on a lead roof. Now, that can be pictures, which it is. Now, when you're reasoning those words through, you've got to jump. One's a metal, one's an action. So you've got to jump around. But as a matter of interest, how many people, when I said lead roof, thought of a triangular lead roof rather than a flat? Interesting, because again, it's how your mind goes. It's like, well, it'd be very, very difficult to lead a dog on a triangular roof.
I think that will be the perfect end to that episode, but I want to kind of go back a little bit.
Okay. I can tell you about why they had a word for one, two, and many, and things like that in cavemen. If you want to go back to that.
I think there's an evolution there, and
okay, yeah.
I kind of want to touch briefly on as well.
Well, there's click languages. There's I'm going. Sorry.
Just because you got very excited when we spoke about the future.
Yes.
Of language.
Yes.
And I think it'll be a really good kind of to hear from yourself in terms of what you would like to see the future of MiiM to be, like the language. But if we dive back, I'll remind you of that in a second. We'll go back to the
caveman.
Caveman.
Okay. Well, yeah. In my research, it came out that if you were a caveman, you'd be hopefully quite high in your cave with your fire. Somebody be on guard, and there was a word when they saw a person. There was one. Then there was two, like I've got no idea what sound that was. Many. In other words, everyone get up, because there's more than two. So there's things like that. And again, cave drawings. Well, cave drawings, not everybody was drawing. They were either for shaman or this, that, and the other, because where's the naff cave drawings? I've seen naff graffiti, but where's the naff cave drawing? It's like, who did that? It doesn't. Well, I've never seen it. So obviously, there's a certain type of person that's saying, right, come on, get your pencils out, Mary. You know.
Just historically, it was people, like they say, like the shaman or the church or anybody that was educated or came from a background that was whatever you want to make it. Ecclesiastical background or something of that nature that only used language because it wasn't elitist. It was just for educated people. It's they had to have that level of intelligence. And as I say, for one of the descriptions that we use for MiiM is for the first time ever, it will give, it will make life a level playing field.
Yes.
It will enable people to communicate in a way that they've never been able to before.
And again, communication has grown and evolved depending on your environment. Because at the end of the day, you've got, in the day, tribes in on the plains, and they talked in cliques because obviously they didn't want to alert the wildlife that there was humans. So languages evolve for all different reasons. Another thing, again, I think it's in Japanese. If you're talking about a forest, you'd put two trees. And that means a forest. And again, I imagine that, again, they jump to a conclusion that, talking about a forest there. And again, that's how you use MiiM. Again, there's a particular person in the MiiM language that in sport that looks as if they're surfing. Now, if you put a snowflake in front of it, it's snowboarding. If you put a wave, it's... they're not windsurfing, they're wave surfing. So there's, again, this is how the language can work simply. But again, one of the things I did as well was to test the language, which you have to do, and I did it constantly, was do every type of egg. Exactly. Boiled, poached, fried, and so on. And that's key. And as it was pointed out, because I put it in the game, and people went, "Whoa!" I said, "I know how to make omelette now," because the ingredients are in there. It's not just a word. It's not just an O and a T and a few other things or whatever. There's an O in there.
It's an information picture language. By explaining an egg, and an egg's in an omelette, you're actually describing how it can be cooked.
Yeah. So we go into the process of how you stir it and shake it, and do this and the other, and so on. So it's an awful lot. And again, I think therefore I thought that was one of the first. Well, it was up there with hemoglobin, really. Yeah. I just thought, right, well, let's really go. How would you do this? And again, this is how the language, the MiiM language, evolved, because it was like, how. Give me the most complex things you can think about, and right now, how do I simplify them? Because that's the point. How do you simplify them? Which
it's all been an evolutionary process.
Absolutely.
Again, we'll talk about this at greater depth, but essentially, BSL and ASL are languages that are privately owned, that when you learn, you have to pay for. The MiiM language will be widely available, and for the first time ever, it is a sign language that is written. It's open for everybody to use, and in the long term, we hope it would be for public information signage, train stations, buildings, hospitals. People who are unable to read will be able to know where they are, what to do, or get instruction by reading the MiiM language in a public context.
Yeah, because it's open to everybody, and again, you don't have to be like me on the scale. It's open to everybody, and again, this is the exciting part of it. Everybody eventually, once you learn the basics, and you learn the basics within playing the game in about a month, and obviously it's 4 questions a day, 7 days a week. But I can't put everything in there all in 1 month, but there's all sorts of different things, and I have to throw curveballs. It's, oh no, not math, I don't want a math question. But they're in there. And films, we do films, and we do all sorts. And like Wordle's stuck to 4 words, so I think they've only got, well, again, my math's chronic. So whatever that, it's not many.
No,
it's not many
yeah,
words, but MiiM is just endless. Because I can actually... When sometimes when I do the film, I don't actually put the title. I do what the film did, what they would do, what the plot was, which is more, well, it can be more funny. But again, it's informative information. Again, this is how the language works, and that's what I'm looking forward. As I keep repeating, I'm looking forward to see how everyone else is going to use it, because once they know the rules, because you've got to know the rules. It's like anything. Otherwise, you can't have somebody playing cricket in a rugby match. Not going to quite work.
Well, we can't wait for the day that you find young things, take it up and use it as they want to. We know it's going to be abbreviated.
Absolutely.
I don't think there's going to be much option in the same way that you do with previously mentioned emojis, where they can actually distort the meaning of a pictron. But they will use it in their own way, and some pictrons will begin to have a different context. Yeah. But essentially, can't wait for people to start to use it, so it becomes this cool language that anybody will understand as well. But it'll be abbreviated as opposed to mutated.
Yeah, hopefully it'll unite people and inspire people because they love a voice. Because have you ever received? You don't really receive much communication from me, written communication in text, because I don't know where to put all the stuff. I haven't got a clue. Well, I think I'll put that there, and I think I'll put that mark there. Because I haven't got a clue. I haven't. It's strange, but I don't know what a vowel is, or what's the other one? Consonant. I've got no idea, and I haven't. And my brain, all throughout the 60-odd years that I've been here, I don't see a reason for it. I don't see a reason for tearing it apart and going this. I don't see a reason for it personally. I know I'm going to probably get in a lot of trouble for that. But as far as I'm concerned, I don't see the point. To me, communication would be, can you pass me the cup? Yeah, now can I have some tea in that, please? Is that all right if I have a drink in it, please? Not just the cup. So it's fast. Not many people are going to be talking about, I don't know, something incredibly long-winded and very complicated. We tend not to do that.
I mean, we've done a lot. We've had triage reports written about different aspects of the business, because we've had to do it to enable us to get some funding. And we know that previous people have tried.
They have
this idea, but they've all failed. And that's simply why it's taken the length of time it has for Tim, because corporates can't wait that length of time. They move on to the next thing.
Yeah. So
I think it's obvious as to why this is unique, because it's taken so long to actually build up. And
I've thrown stuff out the window, because at the end of the day, a lot of people wouldn't do that. Normal businesses would go, you spent enough time on that, right? That's it. Out the door it goes. And that's the thing, when you do have to really, really put the time, because if you go back to languages anyway, they would evolve. We'd be on the plane and you'd create a sound, and all of a sudden, that'd be to try something. Which brings me back to the caveman stuff. The recent studies now they've done with the like flint tools, they've realised now that they would have had to have an awful lot more language than what they thought to explain the like different aspects. I imagine it's the binding, and it's where you get the particular stuff. There was so it was very complex to create tools, and again, tooling. The word tooling in I think it's Swahili is to collect wood. So you'd say collect wood. It needs someone to drill a hole, or I need something to stand this up, or whatever, which is quite hard. And that's how what I've put out there at the moment to say tool is an arrowhead, going back again to caveman days, and you can see it's an arrow with a flint, well, not knife, it's brilliant, weren't they, really? But like a flint arrowhead. But then a spanner, just the head of a spanner, which is completely different, because it's a completely different industrial revolution sort of product. So again, it's going from primitive to modern day. Because if you start to go too modern, you're going to lose the information. That's why in time you'll see a sundial, because if the sun's not there, you're all dead. So hopefully that'll work. And the other one is an egg timer, and it's so if we talk about time, like what time is it? It's a personal equestrian gesture, and a time channel.
But by the same token, Tim's also done hour,
Yes,
15 minutes,
Yep.
half an hour,
Yep.
10 seconds, 1 second, 1 minute. So it's all there. It can be as specific as you want to be.
Yeah, you can.
Tim reminded me of a story, actually. I think this is an ideal one, because this is one of the ones that it's an urban myth. It's actually true, but the outcome of it is untrue. But it demonstrates perfectly in the evolution of if what we're trying to do, how it all fits in. So in the 1960s, as we know, the Americans, through NASA, were the first to send somebody up into space and go to the moon, the Apollo missions. And at a certain juncture, within the progression of trying to get these people up there, they realised that a normal fountain pen wouldn't work in space because of zero gravity, because obviously a fountain pen works by the ink popping down to the nib, and it just wouldn't work. So they set a team of scientists on it. They literally put 100 scientists on, and for 1 year they researched it, and at a cost of $3 million, they created what we now know as the biro pen. So the biro can write in zero gravity because it's got the ballpoint pen, yeah? The ballpoint means there's a little ball inside it that reaches the end of the nib, and whatever angle you write at, it stops the ink from flowing when it doesn't need to, and vice versa. And so they spent 100 scientists, $3 million in a year to create this ballpoint pen, and the Russians took a pencil.
Going back on biros, that's great, because biros, right, weren't invented when I was in school. Mm-hmm. I remember as a little kid, great big porcelain jugs full of like bluey black ink.
That's right.
And literally going to every desk in the entire school.
Pouring in the inkwell, yeah.
Because not everybody had a thing. Now, can you imagine a dyslexic with a nib pen and ink? Mm-hmm. I was doing Jackson Pollock before Jackson Pollock was doing it. You know what I mean? I was trying to write Janet and John.
Essentially, we like to think, we'd hope that we brought everything up to date in terms of the ability for the first time ever, for anybody, wherever you live, whatever your learning difficulties or weaknesses are, doesn't matter how communicative you can be or want to be, for the first time ever, you will be able to go on everything like social media, read things and communicate in a way that you couldn't before. And nobody's been able to achieve that. And it's a big statement to make. I hear myself. It's a big statement to make. But every time we've been told it's similar to such and such, and every time we've looked at it, we've thought, no, it's not.
And when they've seen it, they've realised it's not as well.
The unique nature of MiiM as a language, and the history of language is, it makes sense. It's not just a bunch of images.
No, definitely
makes sense.
Thank you for listening to Me Talk Pictures podcast, brought to you by MiiM Media. If you would like to find out more about the work that MiiM Media are doing, then please head to the show notes for more details.